The great dome of the Galactic Assembly rose high above the crystal world of. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated areas. Some floated in water tanks, others breathed through special masks. A few glowed with strange lights from their bodies. They had come from every corner of the known galaxy to discuss matters of trade, territory, and peace. But today the topic was different. Today they spoke of humans. Elder stood at the center of the chamber. His body was old and bent. His skin looked like dried tree bark, and his eyes were cloudy with age. His species, had existed for over 10,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young species grow arrogant and then disappear into dust. Raised one trembling hand for silence. "I must speak of the Terrans," he said. His voice was weak but steady. "My ancestors recorded their first steps into space. They watched humanity spread from their small blue world to the stars around it, and they left us a warning." Ambassador of the Helix Confederacy leaned back in her seat and smiled. She was young for her species, barely 200 years old. Her scales shimmered green and gold under the dome's lights. "A warning," she said with a laugh, "about those small creatures. Elder, with respect, I have seen their ships. They are tiny. Their weapons are weak. They control only 3 star systems while the Dominion controls 50. Laughter spread through parts of the chamber. The commander, a massive creature named, nodded his armored head in agreement. He stood 8 feet tall, and his body was covered in natural armor plates that could stop most weapons. His species had conquered 12 star systems in the last century alone. "The human worlds have resources we need," said. His voice was deep like rolling thunder. "The moons of their belt are rich with minerals. We have given them a simple choice. Surrender the moons or face destruction. They have not responded." "Perhaps they are too afraid to speak," said, and more laughter followed. But did not laugh. He looked at the young species around him and felt a deep sadness in his heart. "You do not understand," he said quietly. "Humanity did not evolve on a gentle world. Their planet is covered in predators, diseases that kill millions, storms that flatten cities, ice ages that freeze half their world, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods." He paused. "Any one of these things would have destroyed most species, but humans survived all of them. They did not just survive, they conquered their world." Waved her hand dismissively. "Many species have difficult. It means nothing in space combat." "It means everything," replied, "because it shaped what they are. Humans are not like us. When they are threatened, they do not calculate the odds of victory. They do not weigh the costs and benefits. They simply refuse to lose. They will sacrifice everything, burn their own ships, destroy their own cities just to take their enemies down with them." The chamber grew slightly quieter, but stepped forward, his heavy feet shaking the floor. "Old one," he said with a sneer, "I have crushed species far more dangerous than humans. My fleet will arrive at their colony world in 3 days. By the end of the week, they will kneel before the Dominion, and the galaxy will see that humans are nothing special." Looked at the commander for a long moment, then he slowly sat down. "I have given my warning," he said. "History will teach you what I cannot." Far across the galaxy, on a small colony world called New, a young woman named stood on a hillside and watched the stars come out. The colony was beautiful at night. The lights of the city glowed orange and warm below her. The air smelled of flowers from the farms that surrounded the settlement. But did not feel peaceful. She felt something heavy in her chest, like a storm waiting to break. She was 26 years old and held the rank of lieutenant in the Terran Defense Force. Her black hair was cut short for practical reasons. Her uniform was simple and clean. She had joined the military because she believed in protecting people, not because she wanted glory or adventure. Her communicator buzzed. She touched her ear. "Report to command," said the voice of Captain. He was her commanding officer, a man of 45 with calm eyes and steady hands. He never raised his voice, even in crisis. That was why the soldiers trusted him. Walked down the hill toward the military compound. Inside the command center, she found standing before a large display screen. Other officers stood around him, their faces serious. "They have sent their fleet," said without greeting. 500 warships. They will arrive in 3 days. Felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face still. "What are our orders, Captain?" Turned to look at her. His eyes were not afraid. They were focused, like a man who had already accepted what was coming. "We have 12 orbital defense stations and 2,000 ground troops. They expect us to surrender or die quickly." A small smile crossed his face. "We will do neither." He touched the screen and a map of Nu appeared. But it was not the map Nu. This map showed something else. Tunnels. Hundreds of tunnels running beneath the colony like the roots of a great tree. "For 3 months we have been preparing," said. "Every building has been rigged with explosives. Every street has hidden weapons. Every citizen has been trained in evacuation routes." He looked at the officers around him. "They think they are coming to conquer a helpless colony. They are wrong. They are walking into a trap." Stared at the map. She understood now why it had seemed so calm these past weeks, even as the ultimatum hung over them like a blade. "And if the trap fails?" she asked. Met her eyes. "Then we make them pay for every inch of ground with their blood. We make this victory so expensive that they will think twice before attacking another human world." He paused. "That is what it means to be human, Lieutenant. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We fight until we cannot fight anymore, and then we fight some more." Outside, the stars continued their slow journey across the sky. Somewhere among them, the fleet was coming. They thought they were hunting prey. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The armada dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of dark locusts. 500 warships hung in the void above Nu, their black hulls catching the light of the distant sun. Each ship bristled with weapons. Each ship carried hundreds of soldiers ready to crush the small human colony below. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Fist of. His armored hands were clasped behind his back as he watched the planet through the viewport. It looked so peaceful, so vulnerable. "Scan the orbital stations," he ordered. His sensor officer worked quickly. 12 stations, Commander, minimal shielding, standard defensive weapons. They are no match for our fleet. Nodded. This would be easy. The humans had not even tried to run. Perhaps they thought the galaxy would save them. Perhaps they believed someone would come to help. No one was coming. "Begin the bombardment," said. The first plasma bolts streaked toward Nu like falling stars. They struck the orbital defense stations, and shields flared bright against the darkness. Expected them to fall in seconds. But they held. Minutes passed. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. The stations kept their shields up, absorbing the punishment. "Increase power," growled. More ships opened fire. The combined assault was massive, enough to crack a small moon. Finally, after 7 minutes, the shields began to fail. One by one, the orbital stations exploded in silent balls of fire. 7 minutes, had expected 30 seconds. He pushed the thought away. It did not matter. The path was clear now. "Launch the ground forces," he ordered. Thousands of drop pods fell toward the planet's surface. Inside each pod, soldiers checked their weapons and armor. They were the finest warriors in the Dominion. They had never lost a ground battle. The pods crashed into the streets of Nu with tremendous force. Armored doors blew open and soldiers poured out, weapons raised, ready to kill. They found nothing. The streets were empty. The buildings were dark. No humans ran screaming. No defenders fired from windows. The entire colony was silent like a ghost town. Squad leader walked through the empty marketplace, his heavy feet crushing abandoned carts and scattered fruit. His soldiers spread out behind him, scanning every shadow. "Where are they?" one soldier asked. Did not answer. Something felt wrong. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Commander reported through his communicator, "The colony is abandoned. They must have fled before we arrived. Cowards." On the flagship received the report with a grunt of contempt. "Search the buildings. Find their hiding places. They cannot have gone far." But deep beneath the city, in tunnels that the sensors had never detected, waited in the darkness. She held her rifle close to her chest. Around her, 200 soldiers stood in complete silence. They wore light armor designed for speed, not strength. They carried weapons that had trained with for months. Captain's voice came through her earpiece. "All units stand by. Wait for my signal." Watch the tactical display on her wrist. Little red dots showed the positions above. They were spreading out through the city, searching buildings, growing more confident with each empty room they found. They were walking deeper into the trap. Above ground, kicked open another door and found another empty house. Plates of food sat on a table half-eaten. A child's toy lay on the floor. The humans had left in a hurry. They ran like animals, laughed to his soldiers. Then the ground shook. The first explosion came from beneath a large building where 2 squads had gathered. The entire structure collapsed in a thundering roar, crushing 40 soldiers beneath tons of stone and metal. More explosions followed. Buildings fell one after another, timed perfectly to catch the forces as they scattered. Streets split open, swallowing soldiers into hidden pits filled with spikes. Walls that seemed solid revealed hidden turrets that opened fire with deadly accuracy. Dove for cover as plasma bolts screamed past his head. Half his squad was dead before they even knew what was happening. "Ambush," he screamed into his communicator. "It is a trap." But his warning came too late. From the mountains surrounding the colony, human soldiers emerged in their exoskeletal armor. The suits made them strong enough to punch through armor plates. They moved fast, faster than any could run, and their weapons were designed specifically to break natural armor. Let her squad up through a hidden exit behind enemy lines. She saw an officer trying to rally his troops and raised her rifle. The round crossed the distance in a heartbeat and struck the officer in the chest. His legendary armor cracked like glass, and he fell without a sound. "Push forward," shouted. "Do not let them regroup." Private ran beside her, a young woman barely 20 years old. Her hands shook slightly, but her aim was true. She fired at a charging soldier and watched him fall. "I got one," gasped. "Keep moving," grabbed her arm and pulled her forward. All across the colony, the same scene repeated. They had expected to hunt frightened civilians. Instead, they found themselves hunted by soldiers who knew every street, every building, every shadow. The humans did not fight in neat formations. They struck from hidden positions, killed quickly, and vanished before they could respond. On the Fistov watched the battle reports with growing horror. Red markers showing casualties across his display. Entire squads disappeared in moments. Officers stopped responding. "Get them out," he ordered. "Retreat to the drop ships." But many drop ships were already burning. Human soldiers had targeted them first, cutting off the escape route. Those who tried to flee were caught in open ground, easy targets for snipers hidden in the rubble. By dawn, the battle was over. 2,000 soldiers had landed on New. 43 humans had died defending their home. The rest of the lay scattered across the ruined streets, their bodies cold and still. Stood in the central square as the sun rose over the mountains. Her armor was dented and scorched. Her hands still trembled from the adrenaline. Captain walked up beside her. His face was tired but proud. "We held them," he said. "For now," replied. She looked up at the sky where the fleet still hung in orbit. "They will come back. More of them next time." Nodded. "Then we will be ready. We will always be ready." On the flagship, Commander stared at the planet below. For the first time in his 30 years of conquest, he had tasted defeat. For the first time in his life, he felt the cold touch of fear. He had thought humans were prey. He had been terribly wrong. The news of new spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species heard the story. Every world watched the recordings. 2,000 soldiers, the most feared warriors in the known galaxy, had been destroyed by a handful of humans on a small colony world. In the Galactic Assembly, the laughter had stopped. Ambassador of the Helix Confederacy sat in silence, her green scales pale with shock. She had mocked the humans. She had called them weak and small. Now she watched footage of soldiers running in terror as buildings collapsed around them, as human soldiers hunted them through streets filled with fire and smoke. "How is this possible?" she whispered. Elder sat nearby, his ancient eyes watching the same footage. He did not look surprised. "I told you," he said quietly, "you did not listen." The chamber buzzed with nervous voices. Species that had ignored humanity now demanded information. They wanted to know about human weapons, human tactics, human history. They wanted to understand how such a small species had achieved such a devastating victory. But simply shook his head. "You cannot understand humans by studying their weapons. You must understand their spirit, and that is something you can only learn by threatening what they love." Far away, on Earth, Admiral stood before the United Terran Command. The room was filled with the highest military leaders of humanity, men and women who had dedicated their lives to protecting their species. Was 62 years old. His hair had gone gray long ago and lines marked his face from years of difficult decisions. But his eyes were sharp and clear. He had fought in 3 conflicts before this one. He knew what war truly meant. "The will not accept defeat," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Their culture does not allow it. Commander has lost soldiers and honor. He will return with a larger fleet. He will try to erase the shame of new with total destruction." General, a woman with silver hair tied back in a tight braid, leaned forward. "How long do we have?" "Our intelligence suggests 3 weeks. They are gathering ships from across the Dominion. We estimate 3,000 warships, possibly more." The room fell silent. 3,000 ships. Humanity's entire fleet numbered less than 200. "Then we cannot win through numbers," said. "We must find another way." Nodded. "We have always found another way. That is what makes us human." He touched a control panel, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed human ship designs, weapons systems, and tactical formations that no species had ever seen. "For 50 years, we have prepared for this moment," explained. "We studied every major species in the galaxy. We learned their strengths and their weaknesses. We developed weapons specifically designed to counter the threats we might face. They believe they know our capabilities because they have seen our trade ships and our patrol vessels. They have no idea what we have been building in secret." The display showed a massive ship, larger than anything humanity had ever constructed. Its hull was painted black, and its weapons bristled along every surface. "The Eternal Dawn," said, "our first true warship. It has been hidden in the shipyards of Saturn's moons for 5 years, waiting for the day we would need it." He looked around the room. "That day has come." On the Eternal Dawn itself, Lieutenant walked through corridors that hummed with power. She had been transferred from New just 2 days ago, promoted for her bravery during the battle. Now she wore the insignia of a senior officer on a ship that would carry humanity's hopes into battle. Captain walked beside her. He had been promoted too, now commander of the Eternal Dawn's ground forces. "It is bigger than I imagined," said, looking around at the massive hallways. "This ship was built for one purpose," replied. "To show the galaxy that humanity will not be threatened. Every system, every weapon, every piece of armor was designed to protect our people." They passed a window that looked out into space. Beyond the glass, other human ships gathered. Cruisers, frigates, carriers. They were smaller than the Eternal Dawn, but each one was a masterpiece of human engineering. 120 ships, said, against 3,000. "Do you think we can win?" asked. Was quiet for a moment, then he smiled slightly. "I think we will make them remember this day forever. Win or lose, the galaxy will know that humans do not surrender. They will know that attacking us has a price, and that price is higher than any species is willing to pay." In the crew quarters, Sargent prepared her equipment. She had been promoted after new, recognized for her courage under fire. But she did not feel like a hero. She felt like a young woman far from home, about to fight a battle that would decide the fate of her species. Her hands moved automatically, checking her weapons, adjusting her armor. Around her, other soldiers did the same. Some talked quietly, some prayed, some sat in silence. An older soldier named sat down beside her. He was 40 years old, a veteran of humanity's early colonial conflicts. "First time on a capital ship?" he asked. Nodded. "First time fighting a real war." Smiled kindly. "You fought on new. You survived when thousands of soldiers came to kill you. That was a real war." "It did not feel real," admitted. "It felt like a nightmare. Everything happened so fast." "That is how war always feels," said. "But here is what I have learned in 20 years of service. Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We are not the biggest. But we have something no other species has." "What is that?" Looked at the soldiers around them. Each other. When a human fights, they fight for the person beside them. They fight for their family, their friends, their home. That is why we win. Not because of our weapons or our tactics, because we refuse to let each other down. Felt something warm spread through her chest. Fear was still there, cold and heavy. But alongside it, she felt something stronger. She felt connected to every soldier in this room, every human on every ship in the fleet. They were not just an army, they were a family. And they would face the coming storm together. The second armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the belt. 3,000 warships stretched across the void like a wall of black steel. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, gathered for a single purpose: the complete destruction of humanity. Commander stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Wrath of. It was twice the size of his previous ship, armed with weapons that could crack planets. Around him, officers moved with nervous energy. They had all heard the stories from New. They knew humans were not the easy prey they had expected, but had convinced them that New was a trick, a lucky ambush. In open space with overwhelming numbers, the humans would fall like all the others. "Sensors report enemy contacts," an officer announced. 120 Terran vessels. They are holding position at the outer asteroid field. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. 120 against 3,000. They are brave, I admit, but bravery cannot stop plasma fire. He opened a communication channel to his entire fleet. "All ships, advance, destroy every human vessel, leave nothing alive." The armada moved forward like a slow tide of death. Thousands of engines burned bright as the massive fleet crossed the empty space toward the small human force. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Admiral watched the approaching enemy with calm eyes. Commander stood at his right side. Lieutenant monitored tactical systems nearby. All around them, officers worked their stations with focused intensity. "They outnumber us 25-1, observed quietly. Nodded. "They think numbers will win this battle. They are wrong." He pressed a control on his command chair, and his voice carried to every human ship in the fleet. "This is Admiral of the United Terran Navy. The enemy approaches. They believe we are weak because we are few. They believe we will break because we are small." He paused. "They have forgotten what we learned on Earth, what we proved on New. Humanity does not measure strength by size. We measure it by will." He let the words sink in before continuing. "Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our homes. Today, we teach them a lesson they will never forget. For Earth, for New, for every human who will come after us." Then he opened a channel to the fleet. "Commander, this is Admiral of the United Terran Navy. You have attacked our people. You have killed our children. You believe that because we are small, we are weak." His voice hardened. "You are about to learn what humanity does to those who threaten our home." Laughed when he heard the message. Brave words from a dead man. All ships increase speed, crush them. The fleet surged forward, eager for blood. But the human ships did not meet them head-on. Instead, they scattered, breaking formation and flying apart like seeds in the wind. Each small ship darted in a different direction, weaving between the asteroids that filled this region of space. Frowned, "What are they doing? Are they fleeing?" "They are moving too fast to track accurately," his sensor officer reported. "And they are leading our ships deeper into the asteroid field." "Then follow them," shouted. "Do not let them escape." The ships chased the human vessels into the maze of floating rocks. They were larger and slower than the human ships, but their numbers seemed overwhelming. For every human ship, 20 vessels pursued. It was exactly what had planned. The first mine detonated against a cruiser. The explosion ripped through the ship's hull, sending it spinning into an asteroid. Before they could react, more mines exploded, dozens of them, then hundreds. Humanity had spent weeks preparing this battlefield. Every asteroid hid weapons. Every shadow contained death. 80 ships died in the first 10 seconds. The Armada's formation shattered. Ships collided with each other as they tried to dodge the explosions. Chaos spread through the fleet as commanders screamed orders that no one could follow. And then the Eternal Dawn opened fire. Its main cannon was a weapon humanity had never revealed to the galaxy. A concentrated antimatter beam, focused through magnetic fields into a blade of pure destruction. The beam crossed the distance to his flagship in a heartbeat. The Wrath of broke apart in a silent explosion of light, died without even understanding what had killed him. "All ships attack," ordered. The human fleet struck like wolves among sheep. They were faster and more agile than the ships. They knew the asteroid field perfectly. They had practiced these maneuvers for years. Commanded a squadron of fighter craft that darted between the massive vessels. She fired at engine systems and weapon ports, crippling ships so larger human vessels could finish them. "Watch your left," she shouted to her wingman as a fighter appeared from behind an asteroid. She spun her craft and fired. The enemy exploded in a ball of flame. On a crippled cruiser, Sargent led a boarding party through smoke-filled corridors. Her team of 12 soldiers moved with perfect coordination, clearing rooms and eliminating resistance. A soldier charged at her from the shadows, his massive body filling the hallway. Did not panic. She dropped to one knee, aimed at the gap in his armor beneath his arm and fired. The soldier fell at her feet. "Bridges ahead," shouted the veteran soldier who had spoken to her before the battle. "Move." They captured the bridge in 5 minutes. The crew surrendered when they realized their commander was dead and their ship was lost. Across the battlefield, the story repeated. Human ships outmaneuvered vessels. Human soldiers boarded and captured crippled enemies. Human weapons tore through armor that had been considered invincible. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, humanity had lost 31 ships and 800 soldiers. They had lost over 2,000 ships and more than 1 million soldiers. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn and looked at the wreckage floating in space. His face showed no joy. War was not something to celebrate, even in victory. "Send a message to Earth," he said quietly. "The battle is over, the Dominion is broken, our people are safe." Commander stood beside him. "What happens now?" Turned away from the viewport. "Now we remind the galaxy that we did not start this war. We only finished it." Outside, among the debris of the destroyed fleet, the stars continued to shine. Cold, distant, eternal. And humanity had proven that even the smallest light could burn brighter than the darkness. The Galactic Assembly, had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated areas beneath the Great Dome. No one spoke. No one moved. Every eye was fixed on the entrance to the chamber, where the human delegation was about to appear. Ambassador of the Helix Confederacy felt her heart's beating too fast. Her scales had lost their shimmer of confidence. She remembered laughing at the humans. She remembered calling them weak and small. Now the Dominion lay in ruins, and those same humans were walking into this chamber as victors. Elder sat in his usual place, his ancient body still and calm. He had watched empires fall before. He had seen arrogant species humbled by those they underestimated, but even he felt something different today, something new. The doors opened. Ambassador walked at the front of the human delegation. She was a woman of 40 years, with sharp eyes and a face that showed no fear. She wore simple dark clothing, nothing fancy or decorated. Behind her walked admiral, commander, lieutenant, and sergeant. They were representatives of the fleet that had broken the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The chamber remained silent as the humans took their position at the center of the floor, looked around slowly, her gaze passing over each species. Some looked away. Some trembled slightly. A few met her eyes, but none held her gaze for long. Finally, Elder bowed his ancient head. "We warned them," he said, his voice carrying through the silent chamber. "They did not listen." Ambassador rose from her seat. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. "The Helix Confederacy wishes to formally apologize for any perceived insult or—" Perceived? His voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. Everyone heard every word. "You laughed when they threatened our colonies. You voted to deny us alliance when we asked for help. You watched as our children were bombed from orbit." She stepped forward, her eyes never leaving his face. "There is nothing perceived about what you allowed to happen." Sat back down, unable to respond. Looked across the gathered species. The young ones who had mocked humanity. The old ones who had stayed silent. The fearful ones who now trembled before her. "Humanity did not come to the stars seeking conquest," she said. Her voice was calm but firm. "We came seeking friendship. We offered trade, knowledge, and peace. We asked only to be treated with respect, to be given the same dignity that every species deserves." She paused, letting her words settle into the silence. "And in return, we were dismissed as primitives. We were treated as prey. They believed they could slaughter our people without consequence. Many of you believed the same." Her eyes moved across the chamber. "You were wrong." Admiral stepped forward. His gray hair and lined face spoke of years of service and sacrifice. He placed a small data chip on the podium before him. "This contains the coordinates of every military installation we have identified," he said. "We are sharing it freely with the Assembly. Humanity does not hoard power. We share it with those who stand beside us." He looked at the gathered species, his calm eyes measuring each one. "We did not destroy the fleet because we enjoy war. We did it because they left us no choice. They attacked our homes. They killed our people. They refused every offer of peace." His voice hardened slightly. "We defended ourselves. Any species would do the same." Elder spoke from his seat. "You showed mercy to those who surrendered. You captured ships instead of destroying them when you could. Why?" Turned to face the ancient being. "Because hatred destroys the hater as much as the hated. The soldiers who surrendered were not our enemies. They were pawns of leaders who saw us as prey. We have no quarrel with those who lay down their weapons." Stepped forward again, reclaiming the attention of the chamber. "Let me be clear about humanity's position going forward. We do not want war. We do not want empire. We do not seek to rule the galaxy or impose our will on others." She paused and her eyes grew cold. "But we will never again allow our people to be threatened without consequence. We will never again beg for protection, that is. We will never again trust our safety to the kindness of those who mock us behind our backs." She pointed at the data Chip had placed on the podium. Any species that wishes friendship with Earth will find it. We will share our technology, our medicine, our knowledge. We will stand beside you in times of need. We will treat you with the respect that every thinking being deserves." Her voice dropped lower, carrying a weight that made several delegates shiver. Any species that wishes war will find that too, and they will learn what they learned, that humanity does not forgive those who harm our families, that we do not forget those who betray us, that we will chase our enemies to the ends of the galaxy if we must, and we will make them pay for every drop of human blood they spill. The chamber remained absolutely silent. Turned toward the exit. "We came here today to deliver a simple message. Humanity is not prey, humanity is not weak, and humanity will never kneel." The delegation began to walk toward the doors, but before they reached them, a voice called out, "Wait!" It was a representative from a small species called the. They were peaceful traders, known for their wisdom and their neutrality in galactic conflicts. Their ambassador, an elderly being with soft blue skin, rose from her seat. "The people wish to formally request an alliance with humanity," she said. "We have watched today's events, we have heard your words, and we believe that friendship with Earth would bring honor to our people." For a moment said nothing, then a small smile crossed her face. "This request is accepted," she said. "Our first true alliance, may it be the first of many." Other species began to rise. One by one, representatives called out offers of friendship, trade, and alliance. The silence of the chamber transformed into a chorus of voices seeking connection with humanity. Elder watched with satisfaction. He had seen many things in his 10,000 years, but he had never seen a species change the galaxy so quickly. Outside the Great Dome, Lieutenant stood beneath an alien sky. The stars here were different from those above New, different from those above Earth, but they were still stars, burning bright in the darkness. Sergeant walked up beside her. The young soldier looked tired but proud. "We did it," said quietly. "We actually did it." Nodded. "We survived, we won, and now we start building something new." "What do you think the galaxy will look like in 10 years, 20? Thought about the question. She thought about the alliances being formed inside the dome. She thought about the prisoners being treated with mercy. She thought about New, already being rebuilt by human hands. "I think it will look better," she said finally. "Not perfect, never perfect, but better, because humanity will be there to help make it better." She touched the insignia on her shoulder, the emblem of Earth, a pale blue dot against infinite black. Her grandmother had taught her words long ago, words that had guided humanity through its darkest times, words that would guide them into this new future. "We are not the strongest," whispered. "We are not the oldest, but we are together, and that is enough." Above her, the stars continued their eternal dance, and among them, humanity had finally found its place. Not as prey, not as conquerors, but as a family that would never stop protecting its own.